Hello everybody, we're the Geeks and Degenerates. I am Enzo, this is my forever co-host Jump. Today we wrap up our Halloween animated week with something a lot more colorful, but monster themed. But Monsters Inc., a classic at this point. So, obviously you must have watched this as a kid.
No fucking shit. Yeah, because Do You Got a Friend in Me? Wait, wrong movie. But yeah, like, watching this as a kid, I don't know, like, I feel like it did help with that whole monsters underneath your, within your closet or underneath your bed kind of thing. Like, oh, maybe they're just these cute things that just are blue-collared workers in their own world.
It's such a unique concept, too. You're like, I miss this originality in a lot of movies, to be honest.
When it came to like Pixar, yeah, like seeing that, I get the Pixar is kind of going through this coming of age theme and this diversity theme. But I will say, again, blue-collared workers that are monsters, and the only way of like getting a source of power is from the screams of children.
Yeah.
I was like, what were they smoking back in the 90s? And damn, was it good.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that shit was a great concept, and I remember playing this online game of, like, Monsters Inc. That, like, is cemented in my head. It was such a good game.
Huh, what was it called?
I don't know. All I remember, it was a Monsters Inc. game. It was free online. And, like, you just had to do puzzles and, like, mini games. And yeah, like all I remember is that every time I think about it, it's just fond memories. I was like, yeah, I played this nonstop when I was a child.
I remember, yeah, same thing too. Watching this as a kid, and like before Corpse Bride, this was my first experience with like bittersweet endings, which we'll get to in like a bit. But like, I have fond memories of this movie, and like, always wondered why there was more than one. Well, there's the prequel, but like, always wondered why there's not a sequel. But now I'm like, nah, doesn't need it.
Yeah.
But I also remember back in the day there was these like games that were just like a joystick, two buttons, and like a circle. I think Monsters Inc. was part of the package.
Was it like, again, like it came with
a
joystick?
Yeah.
Okay. I see what you mean. Like it would come into like a Cocoa Crunch kind of like it's like this.
Yeah. And video games won't get any more complicated than this, and then here we are now, being like, oh.
Yeah. Or like the plug-and-play ones.
But yeah, again, unique concept, and just the way it's set up where Sullivan and Wazowski are the top two, or the number one of this company. Again, blue-collared monsters, and you're just like looking back at it now, watching it again, I was like, this is such a unique concept. I don't know why it's hitting me so, maybe because I'm a working adult, but like, I'm liking this.
Yeah, and we also have like two great voice actors for Sully and Mike, and like with Billy Crystal and John Goodman.
Yeah,
I was like, what a good pairing.
And Steve Buscemi as Randall. Like, oh,
yeah,
that fits perfectly. Nothing against Steve Buscemi, but like just the way he acts, so slimy. You're like, oh god.
Yeah. He's like the weasel guy of the company.
Yeah, but Sully and Mike are a perfect team. Like, again, number one, and Mike is basically Sully's hype man, and you're like, oh, cool. And you get how the world.
I guess he arranges the doors.
Yeah,
I don't think he's just the hype man.
True. Yeah, he's the bluest of the bluest colors. And like, I like the concept of this city, this world relies on screams to energize it, and you're like, again, clean, renewable energy. At the time, this came out 2001, where you're like, we won't be needing that anytime soon. And you look out your window now, and you're like, dear God, do we need it?
We're kind of fighting over it too.
Yeah. And like, you also see that these monsters, no matter how big and scary they are allergic to humans, and you're like, Again, what were you smoking back in 2001 that made it work so well?
But they're not allergic to it. There was a thing that we, us kids in the 90s or early 2000s, that learned about propaganda, where companies would do this whole fear-mongering thing where if you touch a kid, you're contaminated with whatever and you'll die.
Yeah.
And that was the whole concept, and that's why they can't touch the kids. They just need their screams. But yeah, like a simple sock on them would have like the equivalent of a SWAT team to come in.
The poor monster gets like tackled, tries, and then eventually he's like, "Shut the fuck up, stop it."
He got so tired of his friend, he just shoved the sock in his mouth.
But yeah, that's where trouble starts brewing because as Sully is fixing paperwork for Mike, he notices there's a door, and then he notices like, oh, there's a child. Fuck, there's a child. He starts running all over the place, and you're like,
Yeah.
Now you're just like, how can you be afraid of such an adorable thing? Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
But obviously, this is like citywide panic. Even Mike's like, what the fuck do we do? We can't just pretend everything's normal, having this thing in our house. And the whole monster world's like, they escaped. It's like a worst nightmare. It's like aliens. You're like, what?
I love the little parody on like news, where of course there are people getting interviewed and there's those crazy people like at the background. Yeah, I love that shit.
Yeah, there's like, it's the aliens. They probed me. You're like, what? Sure.
What the fuck are you talking about?
And Mike's like, we can't just stroll back into work thinking everything's gonna be hunky dory, and then that's exactly what they do. But they do find out like, oh, maybe if Boo touches us, we don't die. Maybe we've all been lied to. That's the thing that Sullivan's like, maybe we've just been lied to. And Mike's like, shut the fuck up. No, we haven't. You're like, but she touched me, and I'm fuck it.
I love that. She was like, it was like he was feeding her like the cereal, and then she like touches his hand, and he's like,
it's like, ah!
And then she starts crying and does an entire blackout of the whole city,
making Sully be like, that's a new source of power. Because after crying, she starts laughing because of Mike's stupid antics, and he's like, huh, you just fried our electric grid with your laughter. Interesting.
Yeah. I love the entire sequence where it's like, yeah, they got her costumes, they're running around, they're trying to make excuses all throughout the entire day, just trying to get by.
This
like, oh, this is my sister's cousin's
I just realized
friend.
Yeah,
What?
my sister's cousin's daughter. And you're like, don't you mean your cousins? Your niece, you idiot. You're like, oh, right. I just realized, since this is kind of like an escort mission, this is like the PG animated version of The Last of Us.
The Last of Us?
Where
yeah.
Sully eventually gets attached to Boo, and you're like, huh, this is like kind of a much more adorable version of Joel and Ellie, almost.
Joel and Ellie, Grogu and Mando. It's like any of father, was this reluctant father has to take care of child figure.
Yeah.
You know?
And then he's like, well, I'm gonna find you, 5. And Mike's like, what the fuck are you doing? We're supposed to be putting this thing back. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. The trash sequence kills me every time, though, when he's like, oh god, she's murdered. She's dead.
And she was actually just with the kids.
Yeah. This Mike Wazowski. You're like, oh.
Mike Wazowski. Yeah, go ahead, kid.
Sure. And then, but Mike does get threatened by Randall when he's like, I know you know I'm cheating, but I'm gonna give you a hint. Bring her back to me at this time and we won't have any problems. He's like, alright, cool. Where is she? Shit. Our problems are about to be solved. But when they're about to put her back, he's like, 1, that's not her door. 2, I'm kind of more attached to her than I realized. And you're like, oh, okay.
Like when they got the door, it was like some Swedish bar.
And then Sully's like, that's not even close to her house, you asshole. We can't just dump her there in a room full of strangers. What's wrong with you? He's like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? She's a threat. Threat to what? I don't know.
Yeah.
and you find out that Randall is cheating because he's just planning to kidnap kids and strap them for their screams, and you're like, that's dark. Jesus.
Very dark. That is actually like really scary.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't really dawn on you as a kid of like, oh, he's just taking kids and making them scream. And as an adult, you're like, wow, that's pretty dark, Pixar. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but to us, we're like, oh yeah, they just use them for energy. It's like, no, you're being taken away from your family and being used as a power source.
And then all the while, Water News is trying to make Sully do this preview of how good Monsters Inc. is, and he does it, and Boo's like, oh, Jesus Christ, you are scary.
Yeah, you're not kidding no more.
Yeah. And then they try to tattletale on Water News of like, Randall is doing this, and he's like, alright. And he just banishes them to Earth, and you're like, oh shit, he's one of them.
Yeah, well, yeah, we find out that like, oh, Water News is actually in on the whole kidnapping 1,000 children before I let this company die.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh Jesus Christ, it's getting so complicated for something I thought that was so simple, and at the same time complicated as well. What is happening, Pixar? But it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like you see this friendship fight between Sullivan and Mike, and as a kid you're just like, but I want you to be friends, why can't you? And then again, and now you're just like, I see what the problem is, where one is too hard-headed in his old ways, and one's like being like, you don't get what the big picture is. I see it, why can't you? This is beyond you and this company. This is us taking care of thousands of kids who are about to be kidnapped. And he's like, no, it can't be that bad. And you're like, what, Mike, what the fuck?
Yeah. I love that scene though, where once they got ejected into the snow world, they destroyed the door, and you just see like Sully just opening, closing, opening and closing, opening and closing.
Yeah.
And just in pure panic. It was like that scene's like when I recently watched it for this review, I was like, that shit's a little too real.
Yeah, it feels
Like the voice acting's on point of like somebody just desperate trying to get back to their daughter.
yeah, you're like, oh shit. And then Mike and Sully go their separate ways, and Sully tries to take on Randall by himself, but obviously he's a slippery bastard, so he's having a hard time until Mike helps out. And then we get a very
Like he's choking. And I was like, "Oh, look at you! You're about to cry. Look, I'm just here to say sorry."
I'm opening up to you, and the least you could do is, oh, you're being choked out. Shit. Okay.
Comedic timing was on point with this one. I
Yeah.
love Monsters Inc.
And at the same time, we get an ending which is very creative, which I feel a lot of picture movies nowadays don't really do that much.
I I love that this very big Scooby Doo door scene,
Yeah.
but times 100, where they're going through different doors, different countries. And they got to the one that was like laid flat on the floor, and then when they got out, they immediately dropped. And Mike's just like, that was weird.
Right? Where did they send Randall to? Some house in like Florida or Louisiana?
No, it was some redneck house. It was like, there's a gator in the house. Get shotgun.
Get the pan, Mom. You're like, oh shit, okay. Forgot.
Yeah.
And we still have the problem with Water News where they fake Boo being there, and he confesses in full to Sully off his plan. It's like, I'm not gonna let this company die, and I'm gonna basically kill anyone who gets in my way. And you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I watched this as a
It
kid.
doesn't
and
help that
when-
he was a giant spider too.
Yeah. Just backs on him, and then Mike's like, did you boys hear that? And Water News like, fuck. Well, I'm fucked.
Yep. If only. You know that it's a fantasy world when corrupt
CEOs
CEOs
Get
who
their
are willing to
comeuppance.
exploit their resource would go to jail for going a little too far.
Yeah. Also,
You can tell that it's a fantasy world from that.
you also find out that Roz was undercover and was about to bust Water News if not for Sully, like, picking up Boo, and like, huh, shit, it's a sting operation.
Yeah.
Fuck. A lot of things apparently
Yeah.
went over my head as a kid, which it should have, but since I was like, what, 7 or 8 when I watched this, so I couldn't understand what was happening. Now I'm like, oh shit, this is pretty hardcore.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Like it's cleverly written. And I was like, that's very nice.
Also,
But yeah, we do get a bittersweet scene where they get the door back, and he kind of just has to say goodbye to Boo, and it broke my heart when I was a kid. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know feelings yet, but I was like, sucks.
why can't
The
he
music's
stay?
on point, and the music's on point. John Goodman's breaking my heart, and I'm
Yeah.
like, why?
And then he leaves, and then Boo opens the door, and it's nothing. She just goes, "Kitty." You're like, bye.
Yeah. And then they shred the door, and there's that little piece that's left.
Yeah.
And then later on, maybe a couple of months or a year later, you see Mike, he rebuilt the entire door just for him to like see Boo again.
Before that, it's kind of a dark scene too, where all of them are laid off, and you're like, Jesus, that's pretty grim.
Right? I was like, when they find out that like laughter was the best,
Energy source.
yeah. So now like Mike and Sully kind of trade places now because Mike is the funny one.
Yeah. Like, we don't. I do like the fact that once the door is repaired and Sully goes through, that you don't see the end results, you just hear it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of all that I need, to be honest.
Yeah, like that's the closure. Like that's enough. That's
Yeah.
okay. You don't need to show me them hanging out again and like, oh, she's a little bit older.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a pretty good movie. Like, I can't think of any other unique movie like this because it truly is one of a kind. And like again, I'm thankful there's no sequel because again, I don't need sequel.
there is a sequel.
It's a prequel.
Oh, there's a prequel. Not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
Which was also really good in my opinion.
Yeah. Which we'll hopefully do one day. But no, I'm glad there's no sequel where it's an older Boo and an older Sully and an older Mike living their lives because I really don't know what they're gonna do. Because what are the stakes aside from the city's gonna melt down if we don't have screens? I really don't know. But yeah, it's one of the early Pixar movies that has lived on forever and truly is one of the better ones. Even beats some of the modern ones, in my opinion. That definitely beats out
I agree.
what's the latest one? Lightyear? I saw Lightyear recently. I was like, wow, that's pretty lame. Shit.
I got bored.
Same. It's
I don't think I finished it.
I did. Nothing spectacular.
Alright.
Which is why I kind of I didn't want to watch Elemental because I'm like, ooh, I don't want to set myself up for disappointment again.
I heard it was good. I
Okay.
heard to some people I heard it was good.
Okay. But hopefully Pixar gets back to the way it was before. Not saying it ever dipped down so horribly, but like to like the gold standard of like Toy Story 3 and other movies like Monster Inc., Ratatouille, and what else is there? Forgetting if Up was a good movie. Up was okay.
Up was a really good movie, excuse me.
Yeah, the opening was good. The rest I was like, I can't forget about this.
Okay. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I say it was a good movie.
As you say, Cars is pretty underrated. Cars 2 is pretty bad. I haven't seen Cars 3, so one of these days. I'm so sorry. Don't like Mater being the main character, being a spy in a racing movie.
You don't like Michael Caine as a spy car.
Mr. Michael Caine in the Philippines? No.
Yeah, Mr. Michael Caine.
No, I don't. I thought I was here for racing, not spies. Anyway, we're getting off track. But what would you rate Monster Inc.?
10 out of 10. I'm sorry. It's not me being biased. I really can't find any faults in this movie. Rewatching it as an adult, I don't feel bored.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I was a kid, that shit was everything to me. And for sure, I have a little nephew now. Yay. And hopefully one day I would introduce Monster Inc. to him when he can comprehend like TV.
Yes.
Yeah, so like when he's a little bit older, I'll introduce him to the really good, old but good Pixar movies.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, you know what? I really can't find any faults in this one. It's an easy, like, 10 out of 10 for me. Might be a bit of bias from, like, childhood, but, like, it ages really well. Like, I was watching this on my screen, I was like, I still can notice Sully's fur. That's unusual for an old movie, where I'm like, wow, that is captured in 4K. Usually when you watch an old animated movie, I'm like, oh yeah, I can tell its age, but it's fine. What can I expect? But here I'm like, oh, I can still tell that's actual like fur or scales with Randall. So I'm like, oh, cool. Never ages a day. But yeah, both 10 out of 10s. It's a pretty good Pixar movie and one of its best, if not the best in some people's opinions, which is pretty great. Do you have anything else? Anything else to add about Pixar or Monsters Inc?
No, I'm pretty sure we pretty much said all of our praises. It came to the movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that's been our video for Monsters Inc. If you like our videos, please subscribe to the channel and ding the bell icon to get notified of when we upload next. We're also on Spotify and TikTok. TikTok to see your best and funniest moments and reactions to trailers, and Spotify to hear us on the go. I am not in any social media, but this guy is.
Find me at JomG on Instagram, Miss America.
And until the next video, we'll see you then. Bye, everybody.
Ciao.